On an otherwise serene afternoon in a quiet Washington park, the unimaginable unfolded. Rachel Bennett had only stepped away for a moment that would haunt her forever. She had left her 2-year-old daughter, Haley, under the watchful eyes of a seemingly kind stranger while she ran to the car just 200 feet away to retrieve a fresh diaper bag. But when she returned, her world fell apart. Both her daughter and the woman were gone without a trace. In the blink of an eye, her life unraveled into chaos. 2 long, agonizing days passed with no leads. Police efforts yielded no immediate results. Then, as if from the shadows of a nightmare, a janitor made a chilling discovery in a nearby public restroom. Though details weren't disclosed, the evidence sent a jolt of dread through everyone involved in the case. Hope, once flickering, now trembled on the verge of extinguishing. Inside the Sequin Police Department, Rachel sat paralyzed in a rigid plastic chair, her arms wrapped tightly around a crumpled photo of Haley. The image had been taken earlier that day. Haley grinning wide, her tiny hands gripping the playground chains, clad in her favorite red Elmo t-shirt, the same shirt she was wearing when she disappeared. Rachel's eyes, hollow from exhaustion and relentless grief, fixated on the sterile tile floor. The fluorescent lights above buzzed incessantly, their harsh glow making the dark circles beneath her eyes seem even more pronounced. It had been 48 hours since Haley vanished, and Rachel hadn't slept more than a few scattered hours. Her thoughts played on an endless loop, tormenting her with the what-ifs and if-onlys. She barely heard the desk officer call her name, informing her that the forensic team would report in about 20 more minutes. She nodded silently, her voice lost to the crushing weight of guilt. Rachel's mind drifted back to that afternoon, what had begun as an ordinary Thursday. She'd picked Haley up from daycare, planning a fun trip to Everpine Park. The sky was a soft blue, the spring breeze gentle. Haley had been thrilled, her tiny voice squealing with glee as they approached the swings. Her little hand tugged Rachel's insistently, already dreaming of flying through the air. But joy turned to panic in a heartbeat. Haley had a sudden accident, her pull-ups soaked. Rachel realized she'd left the diaper bag in the car. She tried persuading Haley to come with her, but the toddler stubbornly clung to the swing, her tantrum already building. "No, swing more," she had shouted, eyes blazing with defiance. That's when the woman on the nearby bench had intervened, with an easy smile and a reassuring voice. "I can watch her if you need to grab something," she had said, introducing herself as Melissa, a kindergarten teacher. Her tone was confident, casual. "My son's just over there on the monkey bars." Rachel had hesitated. It would take no more than 5 minutes, and Haley was screaming. She took a chance, a mistake she would relive in slow motion forever. "Are you sure?" she'd asked, voice taut with uncertainty. "Of course," Melissa had replied warmly, already sitting beside Haley, easing the girl's distress with practiced calm. "We teachers are used to diaper emergencies. Take your time." 5 minutes. That's all it took for her entire reality to collapse. When Rachel returned, the swing was empty. Haley was gone. So was Melissa. The next moments were chaos. Rachel searched the playground with frantic eyes, her heartbeat thundering as she called out her daughter's name. She rushed to the bathrooms, empty. Her cries echoed in the tiled silence. No Haley, no Melissa. She called 911, her voice cracking through sobs. Within 20 minutes, police had locked down the area. Parents were questioned, search parties formed. Her first call had been to David, her ex-husband. Despite their fractured relationship, he had to know. Predictably, he exploded. "You left her with a stranger?" he had screamed. "What the hell is wrong with you, Rachel? How could you be so careless?" Standard procedure led officers to search David's home. Nothing turned up. His alibi was airtight. Still, Rachel felt the sting of his accusations burning through her heart. Now, as the station door swung open, Rachel braced herself. David Langford entered the room like a storm. His face flushed with anger, his clothes disheveled, a mirror of his inner chaos. When his eyes locked onto hers, the hatred was palpable. "This is your fault," he hissed, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "If anything happens to Haley because of you, I swear you'll never see her again." Rachel stood, fury rising like a fire in her chest. "Don't you dare threaten me, not now." "Threatening? No, just stating facts," David snarled. "You left our daughter with a complete stranger." "I was gone for 5 minutes," Rachel shouted, her voice shaking. "Where were you, David? You canceled on her last minute for some damn meeting." "Don't you pin this on me, and maybe it was that garbage food from daycare that made her sick." "It wasn't the daycare," Rachel snapped back. "It was that fruit pouch you sent over yesterday. She was fine until then." David stepped forward, fists clenched. But before things could spiral further, Officer Diaz moved between them. "That's enough." And in that frozen moment of pain, rage, and unbearable uncertainty, two parents stood divided by grief and guilt, clinging to the last thread of hope that somewhere their little girl was still out there. The real question was, would they find her before it was too late? Detective Hart's voice broke through the rising tension like a gavel. "Enough. This arguing isn't going to bring Haley back." His tone, though composed, carried an edge that cut through both Rachel and David's spiraling emotions. David exhaled sharply, trying to rein in his fury. "Fine," he muttered, checking his watch with impatience. "What do you have? Anything from the surveillance footage yet?" "Still waiting on some data to come through," Hart replied, maintaining his calm. "But while we wait, Mr. Langford, I'd like to clarify a few more things with you." David's response was immediate and cold. "Make it quick. I have a meeting in less than an hour I can't miss." Rachel stared at him, stunned. Her daughter was missing, possibly in danger, and David was worried about a meeting. Her disbelief rooted her in place until the sudden ring of the desk phone shattered the standoff. Officer Diaz answered, and his face morphed from routine professionalism to something far more grave. He placed the caller on hold and leaned in to whisper to Hart. Rachel's heartbeat quickened, thundering in her chest. Something had happened. She could feel it. Detective Hart turned toward them, his expression darkening. "We just got a call from a janitor at Everpine Park. He found something in the women's restroom." Rachel felt her knees wobble, her voice caught in her throat. Did they?" "Not Haley," Hart said quickly, "but he found a child's shirt and a soiled diaper inside a locked stall. The shirt matches what Haley was last seen wearing, a red Elmo t-shirt, size 2, T." Rachel gasped, her heart dropping into a hollow pit. Haley had been wearing that shirt for 2 days. She loved it, refused to take it off. "I need to go there," Rachel said, already fumbling for her purse. Hart nodded. "You can come. But prepare yourself. I have photos from the field team. Would you like to verify before we head out?" She nodded shakily. Detective Hart held out his phone, displaying a picture of the tiny red Elmo shirt, neatly laid beside a diaper on the grimy tile floor of a public restroom. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. "That's her shirt," she whispered. "That's Haley's. She never goes anywhere without Elmo." She struggled to breathe, a sob clawing at her chest. "I need to go there, now." "We're going," Hart reassured her. "Forensics is already on the scene." Suddenly, David raised his hands. "I can't go. I told you, I have a meeting. But I want updates. Immediate updates." He pointed at Hart, eyes blazing. "You call me the second you know anything more." And with that, without a word to Rachel, he stormed out of the station. The scent of his expensive cologne lingered in the air, a stark contrast to the desperation Rachel felt clutching her ribs. How could he walk away, How could anything take precedence over their daughter? But that was David, ambition before family, one of the many reasons their marriage crumbled. Detective Hart placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Miss Bennett? Are you ready?" Rachel lifted her chin, swallowing her emotion. "Yes. Let's go find my daughter." The late afternoon sun cast long, weary shadows as Hart's unmarked car rolled into the familiar yet now foreign landscape of Everpine Park. The laughter that once echoed across the playground had been replaced by silence, pierced only by the occasional squawk of a crow. Yellow police tape fluttered around the playground equipment. 2 squad cars and a white forensics van flanked the public restrooms. Rachel stepped out, the air thick with memory. Just 2 days ago, she had stood in this very spot, pushing Haley on the swings. Now, every step forward felt like a step deeper into an unfolding nightmare. "This way," Hart instructed softly. A cluster of officers and forensic techs had gathered near the restroom. A tall, thin janitor in a gray uniform spoke nervously with a female officer, his hands fidgeting with his cap. "That's Frankie Morales," Hart said. "He's the one who found the items. He's worked this park over 15 years. Rachel nodded mutely. A technician emerged from the restroom, carefully carrying 2 sealed evidence bags. One held Haley's Elmo shirt, the other her soiled diaper. The sight of them made Rachel's stomach twist. "Bennett, this is Officer Chen from our forensics team," Hart said, introducing a petite woman with sharp, observant eyes. Chen greeted Rachel gently. "We've done a preliminary exam. There's no visible blood, which is promising." Rachel exhaled, only now realizing she had been holding her breath. "Any signs that she was hurt?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Too early to tell definitively," Chen replied. "But the dither appears consistent with diarrhea, just like you mentioned. No immediate signs of trauma." Hart gestured toward Morales. "Mr. Morales, could you share what you told me?" The janitor stepped forward, wringing his cap in his weathered hands. "Ma'am, I'm real sorry about your little girl. I got grandkids myself. I can't imagine." Rachel gave him a faint, grateful nod. "Please, just tell me what you saw." "I do 3 cleanings a day. This morning, the last stall in the women's restroom was locked. I knocked, no answer. Figured it was jammed. It happens with those old doors." He glanced toward the building. "This afternoon, still locked. I planned to come back with tools but got called to clean a spill. During my evening round, I checked again and it was still locked. So I used my master key, and that's when I found..." His voice faltered. Rachel finished for him. "The shirt and diaper." "Yes, ma'am. Right in front of the toilet, like someone just left them," Hart added. He called 911 immediately. Officers were here within minutes. Rachel's mind spun. Could my daughter have been kept in that stall? Locked in there this whole time? Officer Chin shook her head. "Unlikely. We dusted everything. No child-size fingerprints, none on the walls, the toilet, or the floor." "What does that mean?" Rachel asked, her voice tight with fear. It suggests Haley wasn't in there," Hart explained gently. "Someone planted those items. Intentionally." Rachel felt like the floor had vanished beneath her feet. This wasn't an accident. Someone had her daughter and was manipulating the investigation. Life. Why would someone do that? "To mislead us," Hart answered darkly. "To waste time, throw us off, or send a message." The janitor pointed at the evidence bag. "There's dirt on that shirt, different from playground dirt. You think it came from somewhere else?" "We'll analyze all of it," Chen said. "It might tell us if the shirt was placed somewhere after Haley wore it." Just then, another forensics tech emerged with a sealed envelope. "Detective, we found a partial fingerprint on the stall door. Doesn't match the janitor or any staff. Hart's eyes sharpened. Good work. Get it to the lab. Priority 1. He turned to Rachel, calm but determined. We're heading back to the station now. The surveillance footage is starting to come in. I want to go over it with you the moment we have something concrete. Rachel nodded, her expression resolute. The darkness was closing in, but she wasn't giving up. Not now. Not ever. Rachel took one last lingering glance at the evidence bag, her eyes fixed on the tiny Elmo shirt now sealed behind plastic. It looked so small, so fragile, too fragile for the kind of nightmare unfolding around them. Just like Haley. As they walked back toward Detective Hart's car, the weight of uncertainty pressed harder against her chest. Hart cleared his throat, his voice low but firm. There's one more thing, Miss Bennett. We'll need Haley's medical records and birth certificate for the case file. It helps us verify identity and coordinate alerts with nearby hospitals. Rachel stopped walking, her heart sinking. They're at David's house. Your ex-husband has them? Yes. I dropped them off months ago during a custody handoff, Rachel explained, frustration creeping into her tone. He was supposed to make copies and return the originals, but despite repeated reminders, he never did. I know exactly where they are. Bottom drawer of the hallway cabinet, just past the front door. Hart's brow furrowed slightly. We can send an officer to retrieve them. No, it's fine, Rachel said, surprising even herself. David's place isn't far. I'll be in and out, no confrontations, I promise. Hart hesitated, his eyes searching hers. After a long beat, he nodded. All right, but go straight there and come straight back. If anything goes wrong. Anything? Call me. I will, Rachel assured him. Every minute mattered. If there was even the smallest chance those documents could help find Haley, she wasn't going to waste a second. As Hart's car pulled away from Everpine Park, Rachel couldn't help but glance back one last time. Once a haven of joy and laughter, the park now felt like a scar carved into her memory. A place where innocence was stolen in plain daylight. Back at the station, Rachel stood quietly behind Detective Hart and a young tech specialist as they reviewed grainy black and white footage from the park's dated security system. The timestamp on the footage read 3:42 p.m. There, Rachel pointed, her voice tight. That's her. That's Melissa. On screen, a woman hurried across the lot, carrying a small child in a red shirt. A young boy trailed behind her, no older than 6 or 7. They approached a sedan parked at the edge of the frame. Detective Hart leaned in. Zoom in on the vehicle. The tech adjusted the footage, enhancing the view as much as possible. The angle's not great, he said, but we can make out part of the license plate. Rachel squinted. Only a few digits were visible before the car pulled away, vanishing off screen. Run that partial through DMV, Hart instructed. Match it with any sedans that fit this model. Already working on it, the tech said, his fingers moving quickly. Rachel folded her arms, trying to suppress the tremor running through her. Seeing Melissa carrying Haley away, not in theory, not from memory, but in moving images, made everything too real. She was so convincing, Rachel whispered. She said she was a teacher. She acted like she cared. Hart's voice remained neutral, but his eyes reflected understanding. Child abductors often portray themselves as caregivers. They know how to gain a parent's trust. It's calculated. Moments later, the tech turned from his desk. The plate data is being distributed now. We're cross-referencing it with local patrols. Shouldn't take long to get a match. Hart nodded. Issue an emergency bolo on the vehicle. Include Melissa's image from the footage. Push it to all units. Turning to Rachel, he added gently, Now might be the best time to get those documents. Rachel nodded, grabbing her purse. I'll be quick. Are you sure you don't want an officer with you? Hart asked. No, she said, trying to mask the doubt rising inside her. David should still be at his meeting. I know exactly where the papers are. Before she left, Rachel signed a series of release forms, granting the police access to Haley's medical history. The forms felt cold and clinical, another reminder of how surreal everything had become. Hart caught her as she headed for the door. "Miss Bennett," he said firmly, "I know this is hard, but please avoid confrontation. Just get the documents and come right back." "I understand," Rachel said. She walked into the warm glow of the setting sun. Her car had been parked outside the station since the night before. As she slid into the seat, she dialed David one more time. Voicemail again. "David, it's me. The police need Haley's medical records and birth certificate. I'm coming by to get them. Please call me back if you get this." She ended the call and started the engine. The road ahead was familiar, but every second of the drive felt like treading through fog. She kept telling herself, 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back, 30 minutes closer to bringing Haley home. As the familiar suburban streets came into view, Rachel's mind replayed the surveillance footage on a loop. Melissa had moved with certainty, no hesitation, no panic. How could someone who seemed so gentle be capable of such deception? And what kind of mother brings her own child to abduct someone else's? Nothing made sense. Nothing felt real. David's house stood at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, a pristine, modern two-story that looked nothing like the warm, lived-in craftsman they once shared. She pulled into the driveway and immediately noticed his silver Audi parked out front. He's home. A jolt of dread shot through her. Despite his earlier claim of a meeting, he hadn't left. For a brief moment, Rachel considered calling Detective Hart, but she brushed the thought aside. She was already here. She parked behind his car and stepped out, steeling herself. Through the Audi's back window, she saw something odd. Several grocery bags, and beside them, David's expensive leather suitcase, the one he bought on their last anniversary trip. Next to it sat a large blue cooler. A knot twisted in her stomach. Why would he have bags packed in his car? She tried the door. Locked. Stepping back, she dialed his number again. This time, he answered. "What do you want, Rachel?" "I'm at your house," she said, keeping her voice as calm as possible. "The police need Haley's medical records and her birth certificate. They're in your hallway cabinet. You never returned them." There was a pause on the other end. "You shouldn't be here." "I wouldn't be if you had done what you were supposed to do. I've asked you a dozen times. The police need them now, David. This isn't optional." Another long pause, then a sigh. "Fine. There's a spare key under the stepping stone by the potted plant." Rachel blinked in surprise. "Thank you. I'll just grab the documents and go." "See that you do," David said coldly. "I don't appreciate you showing up unannounced and going through my things." Rachel gritted her teeth but said nothing. There was no time for another fight. Not now. Not when Haley was still missing. "I'm not," Rachel began to say, but the line had already gone dead. David had hung up. She slid her phone into her pocket, forcing her legs to move across the manicured lawn. Her eyes scanned the stepping stones lining the flower bed until one shifted slightly under her foot. Kneeling, she pried it up and revealed a magnetic key box tucked beneath. The small silver key inside felt heavier than it should have as she clutched it tightly in her hand. Her breath caught as she inserted the key into the front door. It opened smoothly. The moment she stepped inside, the sterile silence wrapped around her like a cold wind. The hallway was pristine, perfectly arranged, impeccably clean. Not a trace of Haley's chaotic joy or childish clutter existed in this house. It felt more like a display home than a place where a child might once have visited. Rachel didn't pause. She moved straight to the hallway cabinet. As she crouched down and opened the bottom drawer, her eyes immediately landed on a manila envelope marked in her handwriting. "Haley, important documents." She flipped through the contents. Birth certificate, medical records, immunization history, even a social security card. Everything the police would need. That should have been the end of it. She had what she came for. But Rachel hesitated. She couldn't stop thinking about the suitcase in David's car, the cooler, the groceries. Something felt wrong. Without consciously deciding to, she began walking through the house. Each room echoed a kind of lifeless order. The living room was staged like a furniture ad. Leather couch, large flat screen, a coffee table with precisely aligned coasters. No signs of life, no warmth. The kitchen was worse. It sparkled. No dishes, no crumbs, no smells, just spotless countertops and cold functionality. As she approached the master bedroom, the door ajar, a small voice in her head whispered that she should turn around, that this wasn't her place anymore. But a deeper instinct, one born of motherhood, desperation, and raw suspicion, overruled it. Inside, the bed was immaculately made, navy blue sheets stretched tight, no wrinkles. But her eyes stopped on something that didn't belong. A gift, wrapped in bright blue paper, with cartoon cars and boats, sat neatly on the dresser. Next to it, a woman's hair clip, a delicate tortoise-shell piece, clearly not David's. Rachel froze. Who were these for? The gift clearly for a young boy, the clip unmistakably feminine. She had never heard of David seeing someone new, not from family, not from mutual friends, not even hinted at during the police interviews. She pulled out her phone and quietly snapped a photo of both items. Then, moving swiftly to the kitchen, she located a sandwich-sized Ziploc bag and a clean dish towel. Using the towel, she gently picked up the clip and sealed it in the bag. She didn't know why, but something about it felt important. Heart thudding, she retraced her steps, turning off lights and closing doors until the house looked exactly as it had when she entered. She locked the door and slid the key back beneath the stepping stone. Back in her car, Rachel clutched the envelope and the bagged hair clip to her chest. She needed to return to the station immediately. Hart had to see this. Something about David wasn't right. She had just turned on the engine when her phone rang again. "David, are you still at my house?" His voice was clipped, calculated. "Just leaving," Rachel replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "I got what I needed. Heading back to the station now." "Good. Don't come back here without permission again." There was something in his tone, an edge that made her skin crawl. "I won't," she promised and ended the call. As she drove away, her thoughts tangled. The suitcase, the cooler, the gift for a boy, the woman's hair clip. Alone, each detail was odd. Together, they hinted at something far more troubling. She had only gone a few houses when her attention snapped to the sight of a taxi approaching from the opposite direction. Her interest deepened as it stopped right in front of David's house. Rachel pulled over discreetly, her gaze locked on the scene unfolding in her rearview mirror. A woman stepped out of the taxi. Even at a distance, Rachel noted the leather jacket, the hijab, the oversized sunglasses. Her features were hidden, but her posture was confident, familiar. The taxi driver opened the trunk and removed a large box. Together, he and the woman carried it to David's driveway. After handing him payment, the taxi pulled away. Rachel slid lower in her seat, heart pounding. She didn't recall David mentioning any friends or relatives who fit this description. Moments later, the woman reached into her purse and, without hesitation, unlocked David's front door with a key. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Whoever this woman was, she wasn't a visitor. She belonged there. From her vantage point, Rachel noted every movement, every detail. Her fingers moved swiftly to jot down the taxi's license plate as it disappeared. Just as she debated calling Detective Hart, the front door opened again. The woman reappeared, this time carrying a fully packed duffel bag and the same blue-wrapped gift from the bedroom. Still cloaked in mystery, the woman moved with efficiency. She unlocked David's Audi, his prized possession. Rachel stared, stunned. During their marriage, David wouldn't even let her adjust the mirrors in that car. The woman placed the gift and duffel bag into the back seat, then returned to the large package. With practiced ease, she pulled a box cutter from her pocket and sliced through the tape. Rachel squinted to see better as the box flaps fell open. Inside was a brand new baby car seat. Rachel's breath hitched. The woman moved like a parent, quick, assured. Within moments, the car seat was installed perfectly. "A car seat?" Rachel whispered, voice cracking. David had never mentioned another child. Was it for the woman's own son? But even that didn't feel right. Melissa had a son around 7. Could this be her? The suspicion slammed into her chest like a tidal wave. David? Melissa? Could they be connected? But something didn't line up. The woman's appearance was different, her stature, the way she moved. It could be a disguise, or a trick of the light, or both. Rachel's hand hovered over her phone. She should call Hart, but a flicker of uncertainty rooted her in place. What if she was wrong? What if she was chasing shadows? Then the woman started the Audi. Headlights flashed on. The car rolled down the driveway, and Rachel knew. She couldn't let that woman drive away. Not now, not without knowing the truth. As the Audi turned onto the street, Rachel followed, her mother's instinct overriding every rational voice in her head. The documents sat forgotten on the passenger's seat, the Ziploc bag crinkled quietly beside them. She didn't care. Her hands gripped the wheel, her eyes locked on the taillights ahead. She would follow. She would uncover the truth. And maybe, just maybe, she would find her daughter. "Where are you going?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone else, as the Audi led her deeper into the fading twilight. Rachel's whisper was almost a breath. "Do you have anything to do with my daughter?" She kept a careful distance behind David's Audi, the tail lights glowing like beacons through the deepening dusk as the car wound its way through the quiet residential neighborhoods of Squim. The woman driving was moving with unmistakable intent. She wasn't lost. She knew exactly where she was going. As they turned away from the town center and headed east toward the rural outskirts, Rachel's pulse quickened. Her fingers fumbled for her phone. She dialed Detective Hart. He picked up on the second ring. "Miss Bennett, did you get the documents?" "Yes," she said, her voice low even though she was alone. "But something's happening. There's a woman. She had a key to David's house and his car. She installed a brand new car seat in his Audi, packed a duffel bag, and now she's driving off. I'm following her." There was a pause. "You're following her?" Hart's voice was sharper now. "Yes. I know you told me to come straight back, but listen. There was a suitcase and a cooler in David's car earlier, like he was planning a trip. I can't just ignore this." Hart exhaled on the line. "I understand your concern, but this could be dangerous. Are you in any immediate danger?" Rachel checked her mirrors. The Audi hadn't shown any signs of awareness. "No. I'm keeping my distance, but when I was at David's house I found a wrapped gift for a boy and a woman's hair clip in his bedroom. I know it sounds like I'm grasping at straws, but I can't shake the feeling there's a connection between David and the woman who took Haley." "That's a serious allegation," Hart said cautiously. "We need evidence before." "Did you find anything from the license plate?" she interrupted. "Yes," Hart confirmed, his voice turning more businesslike. The partial plate and vehicle model matched a registered car belonging to a Melissa Crane. Officers were dispatched to her listed address, but the house was empty, and neighbors say she hasn't been seen for days. Rachel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Melissa Crane," she repeated. "That's her name?" "Yes. We've issued an emergency BOLO and notified all local jurisdictions, transit points, and Border Patrol." As Hart spoke, Rachel recognized the road they were on. A memory sparked. "Wait," she said. "I think I know where she's going. David had an old friend with a vacation cottage out here. We stayed there once, years ago. It's on Evergreen Lane. The friend moved overseas and started renting it out. Last I heard, it was still pretty isolated. One cottage, long driveway, nothing nearby." "Do you know the address?" Hart asked, urgency rising. "Not the number, but it's the only cottage at the end of Evergreen Lane." "Miss Bennett," Hart said, "we just got a match on the fingerprint from the park restroom. It's Melissa Crane. We're officially treating this as an abduction." Rachel's breath caught in her throat. A chill rippled through her. "She's the one who left Haley's things in the stall." "It appears so," Hart confirmed. "She's our prime suspect." The Audi turned onto a narrow tree-lined road. "We just turned onto Evergreen Lane," Rachel whispered. "I think we're almost there." "Units are en route to your location, but listen carefully. Do not approach the cottage. If David's involved, this could be volatile." "I understand," Rachel said, though her entire being screamed to run into that cottage and grab her daughter. "I'll try reaching David now," Hart said. "Stay on the line. Find a safe spot to park and wait for backup." Rachel pulled onto a small dirt turnout about 100 yards from the cottage, concealed partially by brush. From there she had a clear view of the Audi pulling up to the rustic cabin at the end of the driveway. "I'm parked," she said. "I can see the car. It's right in front." "Good," Hart replied. "Stay put. Now GPS is tracking you. Officers are close." Rachel's heart pounded as she watched the woman step out, carrying only the cooler box. She walked confidently to the porch and unlocked the door. As the porch light flicked on, the woman removed her leather jacket, sunglasses, and scarf. Even from a distance, her silhouette and the way she moved felt hauntingly familiar. Rachel felt her breath quicken. Then the door opened again, and a boy no older than 7 sprinted out and threw his arms around the woman's waist. It was the same boy from the monkey bars. Rachel's throat tightened. "It's her," she whispered. "It's Melissa. Her son is with her." What came next shattered her. From inside the cottage came a sound she would know in any lifetime. A soft, familiar cry. Then a tiny figure toddled out onto the porch. Tousled dark hair, slender limbs, the slight sway of her steps. "Haley," Rachel breathed, her vision blurred. "Oh my God. Haley's there, I see her." The little girl wore different clothes, but it didn't matter. Rachel knew every detail of her daughter's form. Her soul recognized her. "She's alive," Rachel sobbed. "Detective, she's alive. It's her." "Miss Bennett, are you certain?" Hart asked, his voice strained. "I'd know my daughter anywhere," Rachel choked out. "She's in that house. Okay, stay calm. Stay in your vehicle. Do not move. Do not approach. Help is minutes away." Rachel wiped at her tears, fighting the primal urge to run to that door. Then headlights appeared at the end of the lane, a black sedan. She held her breath. The back door opened. David stepped out, dressed in the same clothes from the station. He carried a brown envelope and paid the driver. The cab pulled away. Rachel's blood turned to ice. He walked to the door and entered without knocking. "Detective," she said, voice shaking, nearly consumed by disbelief and fury. David just arrived. He had a key. He went inside. There was a heavy silence on the line as Rachel stared at the cabin. When Detective Hart spoke again, his voice was grave. "Miss Bennett, this confirms our suspicion. Your ex-husband is involved in Haley's abduction. Our units are 15 minutes out. You need to stay exactly where you are. The situation is now classified as high risk." Rachel gripped the phone tighter, her eyes locked on the cabin where her daughter, her entire world, was being held. The betrayal cut deeper than she could have imagined. Not just from Melissa, the woman who had once seemed so kind, but from David, her own daughter's father. "They're going to try to take her away, aren't they?" Rachel whispered as the reality crashed down on her. The car seat, the packed bags, the envelope David carried. It wasn't coincidence, it was a plan. "We won't let that happen," Hart said firmly. "Stay with me, stay on the line." Rachel didn't respond. She couldn't. Her voice was locked behind the lump in her throat. She watched the front door like a hawk, every nerve in her body on fire. Only 5 minutes passed, but it felt like a lifetime. Then the door opened. David stepped out, carrying Haley in his arms. Her little body was curled against him, her head drooping sleepily on his shoulder. Melissa followed, cooler box in one hand, her son clinging to the other. A small children's suitcase dangled from her grip. "They're coming out," Rachel hissed into the phone. "All of them. They're leaving." "Can you still see Haley?" Hart asked. "Yes," she said, her voice shaking. "David's putting her in the car seat. She looks tired. It's her usual bedtime." "But she's alive," her voice cracked. "She's alive." Rachel watched helplessly as David secured Haley into the back seat with mechanical precision. Melissa ushered her son in beside her. Their movements were efficient, like a family used to late-night getaways. "They're getting in," Rachel reported, breathless. "They're locking the cottage. They're leaving." "Miss Bennett, stay calm," Hart ordered. "Our units are almost there. Do not, I repeat, do not follow them if they leave." But as David started the engine, Rachel's instincts screamed louder than logic. "What if they take some back road?" she said. "What if they disappear before anyone can stop them?" "I'm sorry, Detective," she said, her voice suddenly steady. "I can't let them get away." "Rachel, I'll keep my distance. You can track my phone. Just tell your officers to hurry." She ended the call and started her engine, her resolve steeled by the vision of Haley in that car. Rachel followed without headlights, keeping to the shadows. "They're heading east on Evergreen Road," she told Hart when she reconnected. "David's driving fast." "Our units are moving to intercept," Hart responded. "Just be careful. If they see you, I know. I won't let them know I'm behind them. I just need to know where they're taking her." For 10 agonizing minutes, Rachel trailed them through winding roads, each turn taking them farther from familiar landmarks. Her anxiety deepened with every mile. "We're nearing Port Angeles," she said. "I think they're going to the harbor." "The harbor?" Hart echoed. "The Coho ferry to Victoria leaves from there around this time." "They're trying to cross into Canada," Hart muttered, and Rachel could hear the tension spike in his voice. "I'm alerting Port Angeles PD and Border Patrol. That ferry terminal is their choke point." David had an envelope, Rachel remembered. Could be documents, fake ones. "Possibly. Just stay close. They'll have to show ID at the terminal." Rachel watched the Audi pull into the ferry parking lot. The terminal loomed ahead, the large ferry docked and still loading passengers. "They're here," she said. "The ferry's still boarding." "Perfect," Hart replied. "Port Angeles PD is in position. They won't make it onto that ferry. Stay back, do not engage." Rachel pulled over about 100 yards from the terminal entrance. From where she sat, she could see David park and open the door to unbuckle Haley. Melissa was helping her son. They looked just like any family heading on vacation. Normal, happy, whole. She wanted to scream. "They're walking toward the entrance," she said. Her heart pounded so loud she could barely hear herself. What happened next moved like lightning. Several police cruisers swept in from different directions, lights flashing silently. Officers emerged with weapons drawn. "Police, freeze, hands in the air." David and Melissa froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, their hands went up. Haley started crying, startled by the sudden chaos. Melissa's son clung to her leg, his face collapsing in terror. "They've got them," Rachel whispered, barely able to speak. She tore off her seatbelt. "Detective, they've got them." "Stay in your car," Hart ordered. "An officer will come get you." But Rachel was already running. She sprinted toward the scene, eyes locked on the small child in a pink sweater held by a female officer. "Haley!" she called, her voice cracking. "Haley!" The little girl's head turned, her eyes lit up. "Mama!" she screamed, reaching out. A uniformed officer stepped into Rachel's path, but a voice crackled over his radio. "Let her through. That's the mother." The officer nodded and stepped aside. Rachel ran forward, falling to her knees as Haley barreled into her arms. "Haley!" she sobbed, wrapping her daughter in a fierce, trembling hug. "Baby, you're okay. You're okay." "Mama, cry," Haley said, patting her mother's cheeks with soft, chubby hands. "Yes, sweetheart," Rachel whispered, kissing her over and over. "Mama's crying because she's so happy to see you." Rachel glanced up just in time to see David and Melissa being led away in separate police cars. David met her gaze, his expression a toxic cocktail of rage and failure. He spat on the ground. "You don't deserve her," he snarled. "She deserves a whole family, a real family. Something you couldn't give her." "Keep moving," an officer snapped, shoving him toward the cruiser. Rachel turned her back on him. He didn't matter anymore. Haley did. As the shock wore off, Rachel noticed how tired her daughter looked. Her voice was hoarse, and she coughed intermittently. A paramedic crouched beside them. "Hi there, I'm Sarah. Can I check to make sure you're feeling okay?" Haley clung tighter. "It's okay, baby," Rachel murmured. "Sarah's just here to help." "I'll be quick," the paramedic promised with a warm smile. "You can stay right in your mommy's arms." As the exam began, Rachel's gaze drifted. Melissa's son stood near a police car, alone. His small hands clutched a toy car. Tears streamed down his face as he watched his mother being taken away. He looked utterly lost. Rachel's heart cracked open again, not from fear, not from anger, but from the unmistakable pain of witnessing another child's heartbreak, one who had no idea where he belonged anymore. "What about my mom?" The boy's voice was barely more than a whisper, broken and tremulous. He clutched the sleeve of a nearby officer, his small face blotched with tears. "Where is she going? When can I go with her?" The officer knelt down beside him, speaking in a voice too low for Rachel to hear. She didn't need to, though. She could read the boy's heartbreak from across the parking lot. His face crumpled further, tears falling faster. "What about I don't want to go with strangers?" he sobbed. "I want my mom and Haley. Mom promised I'd have a sister. Haley's nice. We played together. I don't want to lose her, too." Rachel's chest ached at his words. Despite everything Melissa had done, her son had been an innocent passenger, swept up in his mother's tragic choices. He had believed the lie, embraced the fantasy, and now he was left with nothing. The paramedic stepped back after checking Haley. "She's okay overall," she said. "Dehydrated, slight fever. The hoarseness and cough are likely from crying and stress. I recommend she be seen at the hospital, but there's no immediate danger." "Thank you," Rachel whispered, cradling Haley protectively. Detective Hart approached, his face a blend of relief and quiet resolve. "Mrs. Bennett," he said, "I'm glad you're back with your daughter. We'll need formal statements from you, but we can wait until tomorrow if necessary." Rachel nodded, her eyes never leaving her daughter. "What happens now?" "We're processing everything. Forensics is going over the car." Hart pointed toward David's Audi, where technicians moved methodically, bagging evidence. "So far, we've recovered the suitcases, groceries, the cooler, wrapped gift, and the new car seat. Rachel's mind jolted. I have something else. She reached into her purse and pulled out the Ziploc bag with the hair clip. I found this on David's dresser. I think it belongs to Melissa. Ard took the bag and examined it through the plastic. Good thinking. This might help confirm her presence in the home. We also recovered documents from the envelope David was carrying. They're falsified IDs and travel papers for all 4 of them, designed to present them as a family unit. There's even a forged consent form signed with your name. Rachel's stomach twisted. So they were going to pretend I agreed to let him take Haley out of the country? Yes, and these forgeries were sophisticated. This wasn't spontaneous, it was planned in advance. Rachel looked toward the boy, now sitting on the curb, hunched over, the social worker beside him failing to soothe his cries. What about him? She asked softly. Child Protective Services will take him into emergency care, Hart said. If we can't find any next of kin, he'll go into foster placement. Rachel nodded numbly. The boy, Tyler, was just another child whose life had been torn apart by the actions of adults who should have protected him. Back at the Sequin Police Department, Rachel sat in a quiet interview room, fluorescent lights washing the space in cold brightness. Haley lay asleep in her lap, her fever down thanks to a station nurse. Andrea, the CPS worker, sat in the hallway with Tyler, keeping him calm. Detective Hart returned, placing a recorder on the table. I know you're exhausted, he said gently, but we need a formal statement. I understand, Rachel said, brushing a lock of hair from Haley's brow. Over the next half hour, she recounted everything, from retrieving the documents to following Melissa to the cottage. Her voice cracked when she admitted, Part of me couldn't believe he would do this, not David, despite everything. He's her father. People do surprising things when they believe they're justified, Hart replied, but your instincts were right. If you hadn't followed them, they could have disappeared. A knock interrupted them. Officer Chen entered with updates. Melissa Crane's residence has been empty for at least 2 weeks. Neighbors say she disappeared suddenly. Her belongings were found in David Langford's trunk. At the cottage, there was a room set up for the kids. Snacks, toys, juice boxes. No locks, but clearly where the children were kept. Rachel's voice caught. They just left them there alone? Melissa left her son to watch Haley while she and David finalized their departure. Based on the boys' statements, they were alone for hours. Rachel held Haley tighter. The cottage belongs to a Gregory Walsh, Chen added, currently living in Australia. We believe David was using it without permission. Locks were recently changed. David knew the place well, Rachel said. He did handyman work there for years. Hart nodded. We've pieced together the plan. David and Melissa met online through a parenting forum. He convinced her to help him. In exchange, he promised money, companionship, and a family. She agreed. She helped kidnap my child for that? Rachel asked, horrified. She was a struggling single mother, Hart said carefully. Her son wanted a sibling. David offered a fantasy solution. It was manipulation, calculated and cruel. Rachel's anger simmered. He knew my routine. He sent snacks and toys that morning, including her favorite fruit pouch. She had a stomach issue shortly after eating it. We're testing the pouch, Hart confirmed, but the timeline suggests he laced it. Once Haley was sick, they knew you'd leave her briefly. Melissa took her. Then they planted her shirt and diaper to confuse the investigation. And the plan? Rachel asked. Take the ferry to Victoria, fly to Belize under false identities. He'd rented a property under an alias. Once abroad, they would have been hard to trace. Rachel shook her head. But why? Hart's voice darkened. David was enraged over custody. He felt you poisoned Haley against him. The court denied him unsupervised visits due to emotional abuse. He never accepted responsibility. In his mind, taking her was justified. A rescue. Another knock. Andrea stepped inside. "Sorry to interrupt. Tyler's asking for Haley. He says she's his sister." Rachel blinked at her daughter, then looked up. "What's going to happen to him?" "No relatives have come forward," Andrea said softly. "His father is absent, grandparents are deceased, foster care is likely." Rachel swallowed the lump in her throat. Could I talk to him?" Rachel's voice trembled slightly as she asked the question that surprised even herself. "Could I talk to him?" she said quietly, her eyes still fixed on the boy who had been dragged into chaos not of his own making. Detective Hart and Andrea exchanged a glance. After a beat, Andrea nodded gently. "I don't see why not," she said. "It might help him to see that Haley is okay." With Haley still sleeping in her arms, Rachel stood and followed Andrea through the dimly lit station hallways to a small break room, temporarily set up as a waiting area. Tyler sat at a metal table, his small form hunched over, clutching the same toy car he had held so tightly at the ferry terminal. A half-eaten sandwich lay before him, the untouched apple beside it. His eyes were rimmed red from crying, his gaze vacant with worry. When the door opened, he looked up, hope flickering across his face. But it fell when he saw strangers instead of his mother. Andrea knelt beside him. "Tyler, this is Ms. Bennett," she said softly. "She's Haley's mom." Tyler's eyes widened, scanning the toddler nestled in Rachel's arms. "Is Haley okay?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's okay," Rachel replied, easing into the chair across from him. "She's just really tired." He nodded, solemn and quiet. "I tried to take care of her like Mom said. I gave her juice and helped her when she needed the bathroom." Rachel swallowed the lump in her throat. "You are very kind, Tyler. Haley is lucky to have had you as a friend." "Mom said we were going to be a family," Tyler whispered, his lower lip quivering. "She said Haley would be my sister and we'd live at the beach. She said David would be my new dad, but then the police took Mom away." "Did she do something bad?" Rachel glanced at Andrea, who gave a small, encouraging nod. "Tyler," she said gently, "your mom made a mistake. She took Haley without asking me, and that's not allowed." "But David said it was okay," he protested. "David doesn't get to make that decision by himself," Rachel said firmly, yet with warmth. "Haley belongs with me just like you belong with your mom. But right now, your mom has to talk to some people about those mistakes." Tyler looked down at his toy car. "So where do I go now? I can't go home." Rachel's heart fractured. Without even needing to think, she turned to Detective Hart. "Would it be possible for Tyler to stay with me for now, just until something more permanent is figured out?" Hart raised a brow. "That's not typically how this works, Miss Bennett. There are legal procedures for foster placement." "I know," she said, "but separating him from Haley, putting him with strangers, it doesn't feel right. I have a stable home. I was vetted during custody proceedings. Can't that help expedite things?" Andrea looked thoughtful. "It might be possible if Melissa consents to a temporary guardianship. That would certainly speed things up." Rachel didn't hesitate. "Can I speak with her?" Hart paused, then nodded. "I'll see what I can do." An hour later, Rachel sat across from Melissa Crane in a cold, bare interview room. The woman who had once seemed so warm now looked wrecked, her eyes puffy, hands trembling. When she saw Rachel, she blinked in confusion. "Where did you want to see me?" "I wanted to talk about Tyler," Rachel said. Melissa's composure cracked. Is he okay?" "They wouldn't tell me where he is." Scared and confused, Rachel answered, "He misses you." Tears fell freely down Melissa's face. "I never meant to hurt him. I really thought we'd be a family." Rachel didn't interrupt as Melissa unraveled the story. The promises David made, the illusion of a fresh start, the fantasy of stability she had clung to like a lifeline. "I know it doesn't excuse anything," Melissa said, "but I thought I was giving Tyler what he needed." "And disguising yourself to go to David's house." Melissa winced. "David's idea. He didn't want anyone recognizing me, said it was safer." Rachel's voice softened, yet remained firm. "But you still chose to take my daughter." Melissa nodded, broken, "And I'll live with that." Rachel took a deep breath. "I came to ask your permission to let Tyler stay with me temporarily, until a more permanent solution is found." Melissa stared, stunned. "You would do that?" "For Tyler," Rachel said. "He's a good boy. He shouldn't suffer for our mistakes." Melissa wept. "Yes. If they'll let you. Please. Take care of my boy." 2 hours later, with preliminary approvals in place, Rachel drove home through the quiet streets of Sequim, the weight of the past few days pressing down on her. But alongside the sorrow was something gentler, a sense of peace. In the back seat, Haley slept soundly in her car seat. Beside her, Tyler dozed, his cheek against the window, his toy car still held tight. Rachel glanced at them in the mirror, her heart swelling. They had survived something unspeakable. Tomorrow would bring paperwork, court dates, therapy appointments. But tonight they were safe. Together. And in the wreckage of pain and betrayal, she had found something unexpected. The power of compassion, the courage to forgive, and the quiet strength to open her heart once more to the healing only love could offer.